Welcome back to the deep dive. We've got some really interesting listener-provided material today.
Yeah, definitely. And we're tackling a theory that's, well, it's pretty far out there, isn't it?
It really is. Forget the usual images of flying saucers. We need you to think much, much smaller. We're talking about nano UFOs.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So our mission for this deep dive basically is to get our heads around this nano UFO idea. What's the core theory? What are people saying is evidence?
And crucially, how does this whole thing stack up against, actual science?
Exactly, because it's different.
So nano UFOs, just the name makes you pause. What are we actually defining here?
Okay, so according to the theory, these aren't just small UFOs. We're talking about unidentified flying objects that operate on a microscopic or near microscopic scale.
Like cell-sized, or even smaller.
Potentially, yeah. That's the core idea. Things operate in a level invisible to the naked eye.
And the material you sent outlines, what, 3 main interpretations of what these things might actually be?
That's right. And it's worth saying, for the believers, these might not be separate boxes. They could overlap. But yeah, 3 main flavors of the theory.
Okay, let's get into them. First up, microscopic extraterrestrial probes.
Right. So the thinking here is maybe advanced aliens wouldn't send big ships, at least not all the time. Maybe they deploy these incredibly tiny devices.
Like specks of dust, almost.
Exactly. Tiny probes designed to observe us, our planet, our tech maybe, but doing it completely under the radar because they're just so small.
That implies some serious tech, way beyond anything we've got.
Oh, absolutely. A whole different level of miniaturization and capability.
Okay, interpretation number 2 kind of brings it back to Earth, suggesting advanced human technology.
Yeah, this one speculates that maybe these nano UFOs aren't alien at all. Maybe they're super secret, miniaturized drones, or surveillance tech.
Developed by, governments, or maybe corporations.
Could be either, according to this line of thought. Taps into that whole black project, classified tech narrative,
Yeah. The kind of stuff we wouldn't know about. If they could make flying tech that small, the surveillance implications are huge.
Profound, yeah. Undetectable monitoring, basically.
All right. And the third interpretation, this one feels even more out there. Interdimensional entities.
Yeah, this is where it gets really speculative. The idea is that these tiny anomalies might not be objects in the way we usually think.
What then?
Maybe they're manifestations or sort of intersections from other dimensions or realities that we can't normally perceive.
So appearing in our world as tiny, inexplicable things.
That's the concept. Like a brief flicker of something much bigger or stranger, just showing up at this incredibly small scale, pushing into theoretical physics territory.
Okay, wow. 3 very different ideas. Now, you mentioned this doesn't come from nowhere. How does it connect to the more standard UFO phenomenon?
That's a really important point. To understand the nano UFO theory, you kind of need the context of the broader UAP discussion, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Right, the things people do see in the sky. Objects, lights, stuff that can't easily be explained. We've all heard stories, seen the grainy footage.
Exactly. For decades, you've had reports, sometimes from very credible people like military pilots, describing aerial phenomena they just couldn't identify.
And governments are taking it more seriously now, aren't they? At least acknowledging that something unexplained is being observed.
They are. There's been a definite shift, especially in the US, towards investigating these UAP reports more formally.
Though, to be fair, a lot of sightings do get explained eventually, right? Weather balloons, planes, drones.
Oh, for sure. Many, probably most, UAP reports likely have conventional explanations. But there's this persistent, small percentage of cases that remain genuinely puzzling.
And the explanations for those range from, secret human tech from another country?
All the way to the possibility of extraterrestrial craft. That's the spectrum for conventional UAP.
So the nano UFO theory takes that core mystery, unexplained phenomena, but just flips the script on the scale.
Precisely. Instead of looking up at the sky, it suggests the real mystery might be happening under a microscope, or hidden in the noise of our scientific instruments.
That shift in scale is the absolute key difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't just see a nano UFO.
Nope. You'd need specialized equipment. It's fundamentally beyond our normal senses, which changes everything.
And it immediately raises the question of technology. I mean, how?
Exactly. The level of miniaturization implied is just staggering. We're talking about functional, potentially self-propelled objects at the nanoscale.
Our own nanotechnology is amazing, but it's not that. Not independent flying things anyway.
Not even close, really. This theory implies mastering materials, power sources, propulsion, control systems at a scale where physics itself starts to behave differently. It's a quantum leap, literally and figuratively.
And stealth becomes almost a default feature, doesn't it, if something's that small?
How would you even begin to detect it reliably? It could, theoretically, operate anywhere, anytime, completely unnoticed.
Which naturally leads to the big question. Okay, where's the proof? What do the people who believe in this actually point to as quote-unquote evidence?
Right, and we have to be super clear here. The things cited are not generally accepted as evidence by the scientific community. It's highly speculative interpretation.
Okay, duly noted. So what kind of things are we talking about?
Well, one category is anomalies in microscopic images. People looking at images from electron microscopes or during nanotechnology research and seeing shapes or patterns they think look artificial or out of place.
Like little structures that shouldn't be there.
Kind of. The problem is the microscopic world is messy. You get contamination, artifacts from the imaging process itself, weird crystal growths, unexpected self-assembling molecules.
So it's easy to see something weird and jump to conclusions.
Very easy. Distinguishing a genuine unknown thing from all that background noise and natural complexity is incredibly difficult. You need really rigorous, repeatable observations, and that's generally lacking here.
Okay, what else? Sensor readings.
Yeah, another area is unusual sensor readings. Claims that highly sensitive scientific instruments are picking up weird signals or data fluctuations that don't match known phenomena or interference.
Like a blip on a screen that shouldn't be there.
Sort of. But again, the challenge is immense. Ruling out mundane explanations, background radiation, instrument glitches, even subtle environmental changes is crucial. You have to eliminate the ordinary before claiming the extraordinary.
Makes sense. Then there's the speculation about secret human tech.
Right. Claims of miniaturized technology. This often leans on the idea that governments, maybe DARPA or similar agencies, are way ahead of what they admit publicly in nanotechnology and microrobotics.
So the argument is maybe they've already built these things.
That's the gist of it. It feeds into existing conspiracy narratives about secret government programs. But again, there's zero public, credible evidence that functional, flying nanobots exist in any classified arsenal. It's pure conjecture based on secrecy.
And some people try to link nano UFOs to other weird stuff.
Yeah, you see attempts to make connections to other phenomena, like suggesting maybe nano UFOs are somehow involved in creating crop circles, or related to things like cattle mutilations.
That feels like stacking mysteries on top of mysteries.
It really is. These connections are tenuous at best, based on finding patterns rather than any direct evidence or plausible mechanism. Scientifically, it doesn't hold water.
And finally, maybe the most likely explanation for a lot of this, just misinterpreting natural stuff.
Absolutely. Misinterpretation of natural phenomena is probably a huge factor. The microscopic world is teeming with bizarre and complex natural structures: viruses, pollen, mineral formations, protein assemblies.
Things that might look artificial if you don't know what they are.
Exactly. Without expert knowledge of microbiology, material science, or whatever specific field is relevant, it's very easy to see a natural structure and think, wow, that looks designed.
Okay, so the evidence is shaky, to say the least. Let's talk about the tech again. If these things were real, what would they actually need?
The requirements are just mind-bending. Let's start with micropropulsion. How does something microscopic fly around controllably?
Not with tiny jet engines, I guess.
Definitely not. Conventional physics makes propulsion really hard at that scale. Air resistance behaves differently. Forces like Brownian motion become significant. Proponents might vaguely suggest things like manipulating quantum fields or exotic energy sources.
Stuff that's purely theoretical.
Purely theoretical. We can observe quantum effects, but harnessing them for controlled flight, we're not remotely close.
And they need sensors, right? To see where they're going, gather data.
Advanced sensors, yeah.
Yeah.
Incredibly sensitive, miniaturized sensors to detect chemicals, radiation, maybe even analyze biological samples, all packed into this tiny volume and running on minimal power.
Again, sounds like science fiction.
It is, based on current capabilities. Our best microsensors are complex and usually need bulky support equipment.
Stealth seems kind of built in if you're microscopic, but the theory pushes it further.
Yeah, the idea of complete undetectability from even advanced sensors implies manipulating light, radiation, matter interactions in ways we just don't understand.
And maybe the wildest part, self-replication.
The idea that these nano things could make copies of themselves, like microscopic von Neumann probes.
Wow.
The complexity of self-replication, even biologically, is immense. Engineering it reliably at the nanoscale, finding materials and energy, So it's another huge conceptual leap.
So, assuming for a second this impossible tech exists, why? What would the motives be, according to the theory?
It kind of depends on which interpretation you favor. If they're extraterrestrial probes,
Then maybe scientific observation. Studying Earth up close.
that's a common suggestion. Observing our biosphere, our development at a granular level without us knowing.
And if it's advanced human technology,
Then advanced surveillance is the obvious guess. Monitoring adversaries, populations, sensitive sites, covertly. Or maybe technological experimentation, just testing the limits of miniaturization.
and the interdimensional entities.
Their motives would be anyone's guess, really. Maybe interdimensional exploration from their side, or interaction. It becomes almost philosophical.
Okay, stepping back from the theory itself, the scientific pushback seems pretty strong.
Oh, absolutely. The counter-arguments are significant, and they boil down to a few key things. First and foremost, lack of verifiable evidence.
Nothing solid, repeatable, independently confirmed.
Exactly. No peer-reviewed studies, no physical samples, no undeniable instrument readings that rule out all other explanations. Just ambiguous images and signals.
And the misinterpretation point we already discussed.
Yes, misinterpretation of scientific data. Anomalies happen in science, but they're usually due to contamination, instrument error, background noise, or known but unexpected natural processes. Attributing them to tiny alien probes is a huge, unsupported leap.
Then there's the sheer technological implausibility.
Right. The level of miniaturization, the power sources, propulsion. It seems to violate known physics or require breakthroughs so profound they'd revolutionize everything, yet we see no other signs of them.
It really boils down to that old saying, doesn't it? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Precisely. Proposing microscopic alien probes or interdimensional visitors is about as extraordinary as it gets. The standard of proof has to be incredibly high, and right now, it's basically non-existent.
So this whole deep dive into nano UFOs, it's really a fascinating look at the fringes of belief, isn't it?
It definitely highlights our ongoing fascination with the unknown, both out there in space and, in this case, hidden in the microscopic world. And maybe our anxiety about surveillance, too.
Yeah, and how we try to find patterns sometimes, maybe. Seeing things that aren't there.
It's a reminder that our perception has limits, and science is constantly pushing those boundaries. But it also shows the importance of distinguishing between exploring possibilities and making unfounded claims.
We need that evidence, that rigorous inquiry.
Absolutely. We have to ground our understanding in what we can actually verify and test. Speculation is fine, it can spark ideas, but it's not knowledge until it's backed up.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Just consider that vast range of scales, from galaxies down to quantum foam.
Right. And how our understanding or lack of understanding at one scale might color how we interpret mysteries at another. It's a big universe in every direction.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this unusual deep dive.